Hi, Bukun. You're on mute, please.
Apologies. I already started my speech. I'll take it again. So I said, as a society, we're very strategic and intentional about driving participation in our professional learning, especially the virtual ones, beyond the shores of Nigeria, and even sometimes beyond Africa. And because of this, we always look forward to welcoming our participants from around the world. So I would say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. Thank you so much for dialing in to join our 6th edition of our quarterly leadership series. My name is Ibukun Oyedeji, the president of CFA Society Nigeria. I'd like to know, interestingly, where you're dialing in from today. So please, if you could just go to the chat box and just chat in there, say hello, and mention the city or country you're dialing in from today. As I've always emphasized, that excellent leadership is key to long-term success of any organization. And as such, the quarterly leadership series was built to train and our members and finance professionals through the inspiring lessons and wealth of leadership experience from impactful leaders and entrepreneurs in the finance industry. These are leaders who have track records of notable achievements and have left a legacy contributing significantly to the growth and of themselves, of their locations, and of the economies in which they've operated, and sometimes across Africa. So far, in our quarterly leadership series, we have featured the best of the best. We started off with Fola Adiola OFR, the founder of Guarantee Trust Bank, His Highness Khalifa Muhammadu Sanusi II, the 14th Emir of Kano, and the former governor of Central Bank of Nigeria. We had Kala Harris, the vice chairman and managing director at Morgan Stanley. We also had Akin Daudu, City CEO for Sub-Saharan Africa. And just the last edition we had Mr. Jim Ovia, the founder and chairman of Zenith Bank PLC, who some days prior to featuring on our event was honored by the commander as the commander of the Order of the Federal Republic by the President of Nigeria. Interestingly, history just repeated itself as our guest speaker for today, last week on the 18th of May, 2023, was honored as a commander of the Order of Mono by the President of Togo. He is no other than Mr. Ade Ayeyemi, the immediate past group CEO of Ecobank Transnational Incorporated. Mr. Ayeyemi was recognized for his notable contribution to the development of Africa finance for exceptional service, integrity, professionalism, sacrifice, and leadership at Ecobank and across Africa. I'd like to use this opportunity on behalf of the Board of Governors of a CFA Society in Nigeria to say a very well-deserving congratulations to Mr. Ade Ayeyemi, under whose tutelage I have personally benefited from. Ade is an experienced banker of over 30 years, who before joining Ecobank in 2015, had a very long and successful career with Citigroup, where he rose to become the CEO of Citigroup Sub-Saharan Africa. Ade has significant diverse experience in operations and technology, corporate and investment banking, transaction service, and public sector advisory, amongst others. He's an accountant graduate of University of Ife, now known as Obafemi Awolowo University, where he earned a Bachelor of Science degree with first-class honors. He also studied at the University of London and is an alumnus of the Harvard Business School Advanced Management Program. Ade is a chartered accountant whose many interests include business strategy, economics, process engineering, and technology. Ade led the Ecobank Group as Group CEO from September 2015, when it commenced the group's roadmap to leadership and digital transformation journey and retired just a few months ago, February 2023. He has repositioned the banking group as a leader across Africa, leveraging on innovation, strategic understanding of the marketplace, and technology. And on behalf of the Board of Governors of the CFA Society Nigeria, I'd want to say a very big thank you, sir, for answering our call to feature as our guest speaker today at today's event. I'll say we are indeed very grateful for this. But also taking this session and to lead us in asking or moderating the session, I've got two of my CFA charter holders and my colleagues that will be moderating the session for us today. We've got Elizabeth Ekpo, who is a CFA charter holder as well with over 11 years experience in the finance sector. She has worked in the Nigerian capital markets in various capacities, and in 2018 was recognized by the Securities and Exchange Commission for our contribution to the growth and development of Nigerian capital markets. She is currently the senior manager with PwC in the capital markets and accounting advisory team. Elizabeth holds a master's degree in financial economics from the University of Sheffield, UK, and is an associate member of Chartered Institute of Stockbrokers in Nigeria. She is currently the chairman of our programming committee. And also moderating with Elizabeth today, I've got Razak Ahmed. Razak Ahmed is the CEO and co-founder of Cowryrise, a digital fund management firm registered by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Prior to that, he was an investment analyst with Meristem and Vetiva, and a business economist with Shell Petroleum before co-founding Cowryrise. He is a graduate with first-class honors in economics from Obafemi Awolowo University. He's also a charter holder, like I mentioned earlier, and he was the immediate past chairman of our University Relations Committee, a committee he remains very passionate about and driving the growth of future financial leaders within Nigeria. Before I hand over to these moderators to lead this session, I'd please want to ask you to listen to our 1-minute video on who we are as a society. Thank you.
We are professionals. We are impact driven. We are CFA Society Nigeria, a member society of the CFA Institute Global Network of Societies. Our mission is to promote the highest standard of practice in the Nigerian financial services industry and provide a vibrant community for our members. The CFA Charter signals the holder's commitment to professional excellence. As thought leaders, we collaborate with stakeholders to ensure adherence to ethical standards, better education for professionals, and to build market integrity. We are the leading voice for advocacy in the finance and investment industry in Nigeria. To partner with us or become our member, visit us at cfasocietyng.org for more details. CFA Society Nigeria, making finance a force for good.
Thank you very much. That was a short video about who we are and what we do. Once again, thank you everyone for dialing in today. Do enjoy the session and feel free to share your questions for the speaker using the chat box or during our Q&A feature. Thank you. Elizabeth and Razak, I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam President, for the warm welcome. And good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us today. And thank you very much to our honorable speaker and guest on the show today and on the session today, if I may call it that. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to an exciting time today because we had a pre-event session about 2 or 3 days ago, and it was given. So I'm actually looking forward to very good conversation, a lot of insights, and I've got my pen and paper down here with me, ready to jot things down. So I'll also encourage our participants to please, do same, and please don't let anything distract you. Like Madam President has introduced, my name is Elizabeth Ekpo, and co-moderating the session with me today is
Razak Ahmed. I'm looking forward to this exciting session.
Thank you very much. So just a bit of a housekeeping on how the session will go. We're hoping the session will run for about an hour, 20 minutes. We're already 18 minutes in. So Razak and I will engage our guests with questions for the first 45 to 50 minutes. And in the next 25 minutes, we'll be taking questions from the audience. So please do feel free to put in your question in the chat box, because that's where we're taking the questions from. And do listen in to ensure that you are taking and maximizing value out of today's event. So just to get us going, I'll be asking the first question. And I'll just take it very easy on our speaker as we just dial in. So Ade, like you want us to call you, you've been introduced and your bio has, been read out to us, which is very interesting, and we're excited about this. But I think one of the benefits of having this type of session is the fact that we then get to know you close up and more on a more personal level. So my first question would be, you are a public figure. We would like to know you a little bit more closely beyond what is publicly available. So what are the top 3 things that most people don't know about you and that you would like to share with our audience today?
Okay, thank you, Elizabeth, and thank you, Razak and Ibukun. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. I was looking around for who you are introducing, but that's okay. We'll talk about that next time. I think it's always important for one to underscore the fact that wherever you are, it takes time to get there, it takes effort, and it takes people. And I wasn't born GCO, I wasn't born banker, and all of those things. I was born in faraway place today, which is far away in Ekiti State. So one of the things most people don't know, I'm an Arauke from Ekiti State. You don't know I'm the last born in my family. And what is not known is I'm the first person to go to a secondary school in my family, my immediate family. Therefore, it tells you, irrespective of where you start from, if you have focus and dedication, and with the grace of God, you can get to the height of your career. And I think those are the, of course, I'm married, we talk about family, I talk about married, I'm married with 2 kids, they're beautiful people that keeps me in check and something to look forward to every day. But importantly, started very far away from here. The road has been long, but honestly, I've enjoyed the journey.
Wow. Thank you very much, Ade. I think that goes to show that your background got nothing on you. I mean, you can break barriers. You can be anything you want to be once you set your mind to doing that. Thank you very much. That's very encouraging. I know Ekiti people are usually said to be one of the most intelligent people in Nigeria, and I think we can see that coming through you. So just to get on with that. So we've seen that you have, or we've heard that you have 35 years in banking, and you've grown and you've moved to the very top of the banking leadership within an organization that prides itself as a Pan-African banking franchise. So what would be the top 3 principles that you would like to share with us today as the principles that helped you in your leadership success as a group CEO of ETI?
So thank you. I think it's always important, again, to know where you come from. I started working in Unilever. It was Lever Brothers then when I left school. And thanks to Lever Brothers, they gave me offers straight from school. I didn't have to do long interview. And I started with Lever Brothers as a management trainee. Then came to Citi. Citi is very pivotal in my career. They gave me all the opportunities and experiences, all the way to becoming the CEO for Citi Sub-Saharan Africa. And then, of course, came to ETI. I think most people talked about ETI, but I'd also like to talk about Unilever, Citi, and ETI to make sure it is balanced along those lines. It is important to be prepared. In anything you do, be prepared. People talk about luck and, oh, it's lucky. But it's where opportunity meets preparedness then the person is lucky. If there is opportunity and there is no preparedness, then you cannot say it will not happen. Then you say, oh, it's unlucky. So luck is where opportunity meets preparedness. I think it's important for anybody that aspire to anything to be prepared. And that being prepared means understanding what does it take for you to be able to deliver in the job that you want to occupy. Remember, every position you occupy, somebody else is not occupying it. And every position you occupy, you are holding it in trust for the people coming after you. So your behavior, the way you execute and deliver on that job, is what determines whether other people will be able to come. So it's important to be prepared, and it's important to execute well whatever opportunity you are given. Know that those are opportunities. There is no question of you deserve, no, they are opportunities. And for you being present there means other people are not there. And therefore, you have to do your best in that role to make sure that people coming after you, they're able to also, because you're not just representing yourself and your family, you are representing all other people that looks like you that may want to take that role. And that's one of the things I take very seriously. And quite honestly, every role you're given the resources to be able to execute against it. And please, truthful to the mandate that you are given. So I'm principled in terms of being prepared. It's important to deliver, and it's important to deliver with integrity. Ethics is one of the key things because remember, in most of the jobs we do, the people that gives us the opportunity to do that job cannot monitor us on a day-to-day basis. So people have to know that when you do that job, you do it with integrity. Those are the things that of course, hard work and all that. We'll talk through that, but be prepared. As a person, it's important to be prepared.
Okay, thank you so much for that. So we'll still be touching a bit more on leadership before we ease into some more technical questions. I'm sure a lot of people on the call today are looking forward to having leaders as role model, and by all attributes, I'm 100% certain you qualify as one. So we're looking up to you as a leader, not just in terms of age, but also in terms of the achievements you've been able to deliver in your professional career. So what would be your advice to young potential leaders who are looking to climb to the peak of their careers as well, just like you, given today's dynamic world that we have? What would be your piece of advice for young people to achieve peak of their leadership career?
Let me give you what I was given years ago. I've talked about being prepared in your core job, understand it. There should be no question. If you're an accountant, understand it. If you are a CFA, understand it. So that understanding is important. But you also need to know more than your core area. You need to know adjacent areas. So when you hear people talk about me, they say, okay, he read accounting. I make sure I also have competency in economics, but I also have competency in technology. Because without that, I will not be able to have anything different from what my other mates have. And also be prepared to live outside your area where you grew up. Because if you are not, then every other thing that looks different from you scares you. So understand your core area, understand adjacent areas, so more than your core, not just your core, and understand the geography that is different from where you grew up. If the geography, you can look at that in whatever form. If the geography where you grew up is southwest, go and serve in north or east. Don't serve where you grew up, because it allows you to understand people when you live among them, understand other people. So to me, core understanding of your core competency, core understanding of adjacent that has bearing on your job, and being able to be familiar with a different geography from where you grew up. If you have those things, then you have flexibility. And when people give you job, they are not just asking the thing, they're asking three questions. Can you do the job? Will you love the job? Can I work with you? And to be able to crack "can I work with you" means you have to have the flexibility of having worked in other places.
Awesome, awesome. I'm sure a lot of people are taking notes of some of these nuggets, and I'm sure everybody is learning as we go on. So now we're moving gradually into your career, core career. As Ibukun mentioned, Ms. President mentioned earlier that you started out as the Group CEO of ETI in September 2015. So the key areas we want to understand here is looking back at your 7+ years reign as the Group CEO of ETI. What would be your top 2 achievements, or what would you describe as your top 2 achievements and top 2 challenging situations? Because given the position you occupy, definitely, we can't expect it to be a straight line. It will be ups and downs. So we'd like you to give us some insight into top 2 achievements and top 2 challenging situations that you faced during your reign.
Okay, so let me say something. When you work in an institution in any role, you don't reign. You're not a king. You work with others. If you say you are reigning, then you got it wrong, because it takes the collective effort. You provide leadership, but it takes you have to understand, it takes collective effort to be able to get things done. Challenges in every human endeavor, especially in Africa, where we are developing economy, you always have challenges. We can talk to that from any day. We always have challenges. Remember, the reason where we say that we are developing is because there are voids in our institutional framework. Those voids create challenges. If everything works perfectly, there will be no challenges. They will not be developed. Will be developed. But we are developing because there are institutional voids. And those institutional voids come to haunt you, whether it is infrastructure, whether it is being able to get the right talent at the right time, being able to develop those talents and get them to get the job that you want to do, get it done. So those things are always there. And also, there are people-related issues where, remember, I came from City to Ecobank, so I'm a foreigner, and therefore I need to get the collective support of everybody that's been there before me and recognize them. But if you ask me about achievement that we, as a team, were able to deliver during the period I was there, is we were able to reset the organization on a path that is sustainable from a growth point of view. And if you look at it from 2016, 17, 18, 19, despite the challenges in the environment, the organization has been set on a path of growth. So that it's important to grow. It's important to grow profitably. I'm a person that believes in market economy, that profitability is critical, because without profitability, every other thing you are trying to do will not be achieved. So profitable growth, we've been able to establish that. We've been able to establish ourselves as an organization that executes with integrity. So ethics was a core element of what I think we brought to bear. And if you talk to my colleagues today, they will tell you there are 3 things you need to judge: what is right, what is good, what is fitting. What is right is by law, is by regulation, is by prescription. But the fact that something is right doesn't mean it is good, because the goodness is determined by the outcome. And the fact that it is good doesn't mean it is fitting to you as an organization, because the fitness with who you are, who you tell people you are. Those three lines of checking are things that everybody in the organization today have been able to imbibe, because we can put the data center there. We can write new manuals, but we need people with integrity to execute on a consistent basis. So tomorrow, next tomorrow, and tomorrow, I'm not going to be there, but I can tell you what an Ecobanker will do. They will act with integrity. They will understand that this is something that is given unto us by people that came before us. Our responsibility is to preserve it and hand it over to people that are coming after us. And I believe that is how to create a sustainable entity, a sustainable environment. But it is a collective effort, not an individual effort. You need the team. If you look at the virtue, the things that organizations aspire to do, one of the key things there, we call it teamwork, is a critical element of that. So if you go there, if you go to our organization, you see ACIT, okay, RACIT, you see it. The key element of that is teamwork. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ade. Thank you so much. I mean, there are so many things that are resonating with all the things that you have said. You've talked about ethics, you've talked about integrity, and this seems to be featuring a lot, both in the what you achieved at Ecobank and some of your leadership values as well. So I think, as you have said, the institutional voids and some of the things, that's why we are developing. So one of the questions that comes to mind now is that you've had an illustrious career as a banker over the years. And obviously, with the whole ethics and integrity, we know that one of the voids as well in our institutions might be ethics and integrity. So how will you say, and we imagine that obviously in the course of your career, you have been faced with some of those apparent conflicts between your personal goals and that of the business. Can you share with us some instance, one or two, where you were able to navigate those situations where you had conflicts? And what would you say were the values that guided your judgment call at those times?
Okay, I try and make sure I answer in a way that does not create problem for anybody. So the position you occupy, as I said, is in trust, right? A couple of my colleagues, we were in a room with the vice president of a country, not Nigeria. So don't worry, I don't use home as an example. And we needed to see His Excellency the next morning, the president. And we couldn't, and we needed to travel the following morning as well. So we said, sorry, we'll not be able to see His Excellency because we're traveling. And our flight is in the morning, we need to fly. I won't use the country so that nobody knows. But the essence of the story is that then we were offered a private jet to travel with. That don't worry, His Excellency will take you in the private jet to the next country where you're going. That is not a problem. My colleague were looking at me, and I politely turned it down. That no, we cannot. And I was reminded that you cannot turn anything down in a VP's office, in the presidency, you can. But we turned it down because my role was to support the country in their financial requirements. And I cannot create any impression. I know it is not a bribe, but I cannot allow any impression to be created that with the photograph of myself and my colleague jumping into the presidential jet and the following week approving a big loan for the country. Ain't going to happen. Okay? And we did not. We took a flight, we went through the grand countries to be able to get there, but we made sure that we demonstrated that what we say is what we do. Long time ago, before I came to Ecobank, I was in City, and we had a very successful project in Kenya. That project was the privatization of a big telecom company in Kenya. We were the lead receiving bank. Everybody believed, and I think history has proven them right, that if you buy that shares, that is the sure path to becoming rich. So everybody was buying. And in fact, my colleagues opened a brokerage account for me. But I refused to buy. I refused to use the brokerage account. Every other person in the bank bought, but I refused to buy. I think almost everybody in the country bought, but I refused. Not because I didn't know the benefit I would get financially, but it is going to be a trade-off. In case there's any problem with that IPO and people lose money, and the CEO of Citigroup made money, it doesn't matter whether it is $100 or $10 or $1,000. The fact of the matter is I cannot say that I had no interest. And I did not want to compromise the responsibility. Remember, I hold that position in trust. I didn't want to compromise that. So there are always examples that you can give, but the strand is, one, perception itself is enough. The perception itself. Don't say, oh, I didn't. No. The perception, because you hold your position, especially leadership position, you hold it in trust. If any of your people at any time can perceive that your benefit is more than your income, there's a problem.
Thank you very much. I think maybe we should give you an honorary CFA designation, because what you have just explained is one of the tenets of our code of ethics in CFA that we as professionals are advised and encouraged to uphold, where it is not just a fact that you actually did something wrong, but the fact that if it can be perceived by anyone that it's likely that you did something wrong, then you should avoid that situation altogether. So thank you very much, Ade, for leading by example and being able to stand the test of time when those conflicted situations actually bring them. Because we're all going to have these situations at every point in time, once or twice during our career. So it's really encouraging to see that there are people who have risen to the peak of their career upholding these values. And I believe that every CFA member on this call, on this line as well, is also living by those tenets. So another career question from me will be, you've said you've started from when you were a management trainee, and then you went to Citibank, and then you went to ETI. But I think we want to believe that there are certain moments that actually define those turning points that really said, this is CEO material, this is management material. So can you just take us through those, either whether there were challenges or whether there were opportunities? I think sometimes it's a factor of how you're able to leverage them to really stand out. So is it possible to share with us some of those defining moments and how you were able to leverage the challenges or the opportunities, to make something out of your career?
Okay, thank you. So I've spoken about Unilever. I was there, my main trainee. I enjoyed it a lot. Apart from being accounting, I also did some computing. So when I came to Citi in '88, I was in the operations department. But one of the things I saw was that computing was a critical element of operations. And I'm an accountant, so I know that. Computing, I decided to ensure that I'm well trained in that, so that I can, as I said earlier on, diversify my skill set. And then I left. I needed to leave Nigeria. I left Nigeria, went to Kenya. But I became very senior in Citi. When I was in South Africa, I became appointed a managing director, which is the height when you are in, not managing director, corporate title, not an MD position. A managing director, you move from director to managing director, and that's so 2004 December, I got appointed managing director. And I've been in operations and technology all through. And I said, if I want to become a leader, a CEO of a bank, I don't want to move from only having operations and technology experience and say, I want to become a CEO. I went to my boss, I said I needed to run a company. We call them branches in city, that I need to run a branch. And I was given the branch, I was given Kenya, plus East Africa, which is Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Zambia. At that time, the countries together did not make up to $100 million. And I told my boss, I want to run an entity that makes $100 million. And the man told me, if you want to run, this is what I have. Go and run it and make it 100 million. And we were able to make it 100 million. But the first time I went to a meeting of the Chambers of Commerce in Kenya, and somebody approached me and said, "Oh, what were you doing before this job?" I said I was the Chief Operating Officer for Sub-Saharan Africa. He said, "Chief Operating Officer?" I said, "Yes." "And you are now the CEO for East Africa?" I said, "Yes." He said, "That's a demotion, no?" I said, "Yes, I know it's a demotion." He said, "So why did you take the job?" I said, "I took the job because of what I can learn from the job, not the title the job has given me. What I can learn from the job, not the title the job has given me." And I'm happy today that I learned a lot from that job. And I then asked my my boss that I want to become a senior credit officer. Senior credit officer takes 10 to 12 years in City. But I said, I don't have 10 to 12 years. I want to do it in 1 year. How can I? And then I put on the effort and all that, and I got that done. And I was very happy with that. Because to me, I cannot become a CEO that is worth its salt if I don't run the marketing side, I don't run the credit side. But I wouldn't have gotten that opportunity if I was not ready to step back and learn. And by the way, before I left Nigeria, you remember I said I was from operations? I then agreed to go and run technology in City, Nigeria. And I was going to be the first local person to run technology. In those days, technology is proprietary. So it's not something you read in a book. You learn it by doing. And the organization then asked me, you are a chartered accountant, you have the option of going the CFO route or going the technology route. And I asked my boss, which one is easier? He said, of course, CFO, we know, dual route, you know, you can do it and all that. But the technology, we are not sure. And I chose the technology because I believe that if I excel in it, the value adds to me as a person. Up to that point, it's going to be significantly better than if I just go to doing the things I know. The learning, never be afraid of taking an opportunity. Because if you fail, you will know at least you've tried. You have an answer. If you don't try, then you never know. And because I did technology today, there are a lot of people in many organizations that even think I'm an engineer, though I'm not, for sure I'm not. But there are many people that think I'm an engineer, but I took that role. And so as you go through your career, try and look at opportunities that gives you the biggest bang, the value that you can learn from that job, the value addition of the job to you, not just a question of whether they pay you more. Because ultimately, if you prepare yourself, you excel in what you do. You look at opportunities that add value to you as a person, and you acquire those skill sets. You become a candidate for the next job that is much bigger than where you are today. No job is in Syria. I never became a country operations head for Nigeria. That was the thing that I looked forward to when I was in City, Nigeria. My whole life, I wanted to become a senior country operations officer. And I was never given that opportunity. So when I left Nigeria in 99 to go to Kenya to become senior country operations officer in Kenya, I said, well, if I couldn't do Nigeria, I'll go to Kenya. But believe me, by 2002, everything was added, my job. I left 99. I couldn't become senior country operations officer in Nigeria. I went to Kenya. 2002, I went to South Africa to run operations for South Africa and East Africa. 2002 October, Nigeria was added. So what I couldn't do, what I didn't do 3 years ago or 4 years ago became part of the job that I'm doing. And it is important when people are giving you assignments, you need to demonstrate consistency of execution in that assignment. If I stay in Nigeria, the leadership of City will not be sure whether I can execute outside my domain of people that knows me, that are my friends, that we speak the same language, that are from the same country. But by leaving Nigeria, within 3-4 years, Nigeria became one of the countries, from an O&T point of view, that I was actually responsible for. So I've tried to paint for you certain times when there are challenges, and if you choose the one that is difficult, then if you succeed, then you have a much better outcome. When I left City to come to Ecobank, success was not assured. And I came ultimately because I felt that this is an opportunity to demonstrate that an African entity can be run and deliver with integrity. And I'm very lucky and thankful to the board, to the chairman, to everybody for making it feasible that we can actually execute with integrity.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. I think there's just a lot to unpack in that explanation, from being able to take on challenges, being able to take on changes that are happening. And that leads to the next question, which is more or less like an offshoot of what you just mentioned. So we're looking at some of the mega forces that are happening across the world, and more importantly, within the financial service sector, financial service industry, particularly. So we're looking at the current, how cheap technology is today, and technology is disrupting so many verticals within the financial service industry. We're looking at how we have high global mobility of human capital in today's world. And we're also looking at the new entrance of, the new generation into the labor force, the younger force, who, grew up as a digital natives. So looking at all these mega forces, how does one combine these dynamics to ensure that we're able to deliver better results within the financial service industry? And you are in the best position to discuss this because you've seen it from, 30 years ago till now, how the industry has evolved. So combining these forces, how can today's executives within the financial service industry deliver, better results for stakeholders generally?
Okay, thank you. Everybody knows my age, so it's no longer a secret that I joined banking when it took 21 working days to clear a check from Kano to Lagos, right? And when I see people complain now that I sent the money 2 minutes ago and it's not there, I say, okay, yeah, we've made progress. And actually, if you look at it over time, we've made significant progress. But one thing that we also then need to understand is that there's still a lot that needs to be done. So you talk about forces of change. There are forces of change that are exogenous to us. Those are the things that are changing within the environment, the technology, development of technology, development of engineering, the combination of those things, of mathematics and those things together to create a whole range of things, including whether you look at crypto, whether you look at the artificial intelligence, machine learning, all of those things are there today to be able to change the face of the future that we have. Any player needs to be futuristic so that you can deliver. Face that future with confidence and courage, not with fear. Let us accept that the jobs we're doing today is not going to be there tomorrow. If your best skill is to be able to punch a calculator in those days, I have friends and colleagues who, without looking at the calculator, can punch the numbers. As soon as the process is automated, if that's the only skill you have, it's gone. So it is important that we face the future, understanding that the end goal of finance is to serve society. The end goal is not to hire people. It's not to have many people doing, it's not to have tellers. It's not to have clearing. It's not to have ATM. The end goal is to intermediate and serve society and create a better society than what we. So yes, you're right. Technology is changing. We need to adopt it. We need to accept it. We need to accelerate it and accelerate its use. And ensure that we use that technology to enable financial inclusion, because that is how society can see that we're doing our bit in changing their ability to be able to live a much better life. Changing how we are democratizing the savings culture of our people. Because with the phone today, it makes it easier for anybody to be able to participate. But also, we need to be able to explain things to people in a way that they can understand. Because if they don't understand, they will not participate. And there's so many other things that we need to do, especially in providing finance to our small and medium scale enterprises, using finance as a means of improving this life of our people, that we need to do. And technology is one key thing that we can use to do that. Without technology, remember, we will not be able to send money to people in 2 minutes, in seconds. We used to do it in 21 working days, not 21 days, 21 working days in those days. But today, we can do it more differently. But today is much better than yesterday. And tomorrow will be much better than today. So we should not delay the use of new methods and new technologies because it will change who we are. Who we are should not be a friction to development, should not be a friction to change. We should enable that change as leaders, accept it. Remember, before COVID, you will see board members saying that they cannot do meetings virtually.
True.
When COVID came, they did it. When COVID came, the branches were closed, people use ATM, people do transfer. So it's important that we just accept that the future is going to change. And let us all accept the skill set you have today is for the job that has been defined up to today. For you to be able to survive tomorrow, you have to develop new skill sets. And most of the things we do today, even you and I, those things will no longer be candidates for growth tomorrow. We need to learn new things. I tell people that most of the work we do in banking will no longer be necessary. We need to find new things that we do to ensure that we continue to add value to society.
Awesome stuff. I'll still write on that particular question. Nigeria is known for a very youthful demography. We have very young people who are looking for a job, who are looking for what to do, they basically hold the future. Compared to when you started your career in banking, speaking specifically to banking now, compared to when you started your career in banking, is banking as attractive to these young professionals today as it was then? And what has changed over the past 3 decades, basically?
Okay. When you use the word attractive, it reminds me of when I finished university. I went to manufacturing because I believe that is where I can add value, and that is where value can be added to me. I think when you use the word banking, financial services, and we have to always broaden it. Financial services is attractive today as it was then to people that have a sense of understanding that the growth of our ability to consume better than the history is partly as a result of financing mechanism. Remember that in not long time ago, still yet, people consume based on their current income and their current savings. Finance is what enables you to consume based on your current savings, your current income, and future income. And if you think about it, that is what enables society to actually grow rapidly. That you can consume your future income today. You can have a standard of living that is based on not just your current income and current savings, it's based on your current income, current savings, and your future income as well. That, if you bring that together, it becomes that is why people can consume housing as an owner, not as a tenant. People can consume cars as an owner, not as somebody that rents it. And you can go on and on like that on the things that we can consume because of finance that enable that to happen. So I think people that are young that are coming should ask the question, how come somebody in United Kingdom, and I use this, I'm sorry I'm going to use this, somebody in United Kingdom that just finished university has worked for 3 years or 5 years can afford to get a mortgage and buy a house. Let us assume that house, for the sake of conversation, is 100,000 pounds. And the person can get a house, 100,000 pounds, and put a mortgage of 25 years on it. In 10 years, the value of that house will be double, with 200,000. If the person has borrowed, say, 80,000 pounds, the person will be living a 200,000 pounds house with 80,000 pounds debt. That is assuming the person is not paying anything. And in 10 years again, the value of that house will double. That means the person will be living in a 400,000 pounds house with 80,000 debt. Now, come back to our society. Is that possible? Today, it doesn't look possible. It doesn't look possible for a large number of our people. That is the future that finance can enable. And for as long as those things are outstanding, that is, whoever is coming, that is the impact that that person can have. How can you, within a 20-year career, have a house that is worth 400,000 pounds on a debt of 80 pounds? And I'm just picked mortgage. We don't have that. The mortgage is what allows you to be 80,000 pounds and buy 100,000 pounds. You take a loan of 80,000, buy a property worth 100,000. In 20 years, that property becomes 400,000 and your loan is 80,000. Finance enables that to happen. And if people come to finance with the intention of being able to have impact to solve that problem for us, then of course it has to be attractive. Because if you solve big problems, you get big rewards. You don't have to steal, just solve big problems. You get big rewards. Thank you. I mean, I can go on, but I know time is always going to be limited.
Yes. Thank you very much for those responses, and I think that should encourage our participants who are not yet CFA charter holders to register and be able to leverage that knowledge to be able to solve societal problems at that level. And I think that's also something we as CFA charter holders who are already in the industry should also strive to solve and make finance easy for us to have better lives than we had before. I mean, now we are going to be moving a bit more from your personal side to more Africa and Nigeria, how this can then be scaled up on Nigeria and Africa level. And you've worked with a global bank, Citi, and you've also worked with a Pan-African bank, so a bank that is really operates only within Africa and not outside Africa. And I believe you already see what those differences are. But we will also note that in those 3 decades in banking, that banking in Africa has also evolved. You've talked about when you used to use 21 days, working days to clear check, and now, I mean, in fact, people just sit at the comfort of their homes and, press their phone, and they're able to get money from one place to another. And we have seen franchises like ETI remain steadfast in that Pan-African strategy and how to make finance available to more people. We've also seen other people who are, with the regional approach as well, but all is geared towards the same thing. So how would you say you see banking in Africa change in the next couple of years, the coming decades? And how, what would be your advice to those banking institutions so that they can be able to also compete with their global peers?
Okay, I think I will talk to banking, but I normally like to broaden it to finance, if you don't mind.
Oh, yeah,
And the reason why I broaden it to finance is that banks, from a capital allocation point of view, most times banks have only one tool: loan. Loan, when you give it, is to people that actually have proven ability to pay. Remember, I didn't say they have ability, proven ability to pay. And therefore, when you are starting up in a business, you need a whole strand of capital. You need risk capital, equity. You need capital that is debt. In between that, you have a whole series of capital levels that is taking some risks. So if you are starting a business, for equity, you either go to mom and pop or family. You can't go to a bank for a loan for equity. You shouldn't, because if you do, that's a problem. Whereas in other places, you have venture capital. And we need to develop those things. You have venture capital you can go to that says, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the risk. And for a venture capitalist, you don't need 10%, you don't need more than 1 in 4 to be successful. 1 in 4 is 25% success rate. If there's any bank that has a loan that is 75% non-performing loan, that bank is dead. Therefore, you cannot use banks alone to solve all the capital needs. Otherwise, there will be no venture. And therefore, there will be no risk taking. And therefore, there will be no big reward. If the only capital available to the likes of Microsoft, the likes of Tesla, is loan, they're not going to do anything. Because 75% NPL, in fact, 10% NPL is a problem. Not to talk about 75%. Whereas for venture capitalists, you only need 1 in 4 to be successful. You don't need everybody to become like Tesla. You don't need everybody to become like Microsoft. You don't need everybody to become like Meta, but you need 1 in 4. And there are businesses, there are business models that are looking towards those 1 in 4. So when people tell me, banks, you don't lend money to SME, I said, the SME is risky. So, but that's what you need to do as a bank. No, we need to expand the array of tools that we have to be able to allocate capital. Allocate risk capital, but understand the basis of that. For the rest of the banks, the rest of the banking system, it is important that we work together as a team. Because whether it is the regional, within the West African, within the Africa, it's important to work together because there are certain things that we can do singly. There are certain things that we need to do as a team to be able to allocate capital more efficiently amongst us. I always ask the question, how come the same borrower can go around the whole banking system and non-performing in bank A, transfer to bank B? So we need to try and solve that, okay? Solve that problem of people that are perennial borrowing and they are not able to, they don't want to pay. By the way, most of the people that are not paying, they are able to pay, they don't want to pay, okay? And I can say that with clarity because I sat at the ringside for a long time and I see people that will do Owambe and they don't pay their debts. So I can see that. So that we need to make sure that we don't allow them to. Then the other thing is we need to start seeing how we can ensure certain things that we spend money on that is not adding value. So when you look at collateral, for example, is something that it can be digitized and everybody can participate in the pool of that collateral. So if I have my phone as my collateral, if I register it once, I should be able to give access to as many bankers as I have. That means the cost of registration is once, the cost of transfer is no longer necessary, and it allows people to be able to do things much better. And finally, what they need to look at is compliance is important for us because it's the entry ticket to global finance. But what we do is that we spend on finance, on compliance individually as banks. But those are not basis of competition. Those are basis of collaboration. That we need to come together and say, what are the basis of competition? We compete individually. What are the basis of collaboration? We collaborate together. Data center is not a basis of competition because it's just a box. It's a basis of collaboration. And if we do those things, then we can actually bring down our cost to serve and be able to scale up and do more together. And I talked to the African, now this is for the African ministers, finance ministers, governors, and co, that don't ask banks to all have data centers in every country, because that is just in 55 countries. That's 55 data centers. Unless that's your business, you're not going to be able to do a profit. So, basis of competition, basis of collaboration, my colleagues need to come together. Don't use loan as a solution to all problems. You need to have a whole spectrum of capital to be able to solve that.
Well, thank you very much. I think you bring out a very critical point of having those market utility that everyone can benefit from, rather than having them owned by individual bank institutions, and then increasing the cost of even serving the populace, as well as developing the whole spectrum of finance. So every part is playing is part, and then there's not just so much reliance on the banking sector. And then that brings us to, we're gradually coming to how we are maximizing value from an Africa context. And one of the things we've been looking at from that context is also economic integration among the African states. I know with AFTA, they're already talking about how the African markets alone is about 1 billion, whereas India alone, right, it's 1 billion as well. well. So there's need. It seems to make the argument that there's need for economic integration. So how would financial services, like you've mentioned, we need to talk beyond banking, how would financial services and what role do they need to play in ensuring that we're able to bring that integration among African states, and so that we can also leverage on the benefits of the AFTA that has recently been launched?
Okay. I agree that as 1.x billion people on African continent has the potential, and I use the word carefully, potential, to be to compete with India from a market sizing point of view. But for you to compete from a market sizing point of view, you have to remove internal frictions. The reason India is big is because there are no internal frictions. And therefore, the continental free trade area, the theory of the case was that if you remove internal frictions, it will allow people to be able to cite companies that has a bigger market outlook. And therefore, the quantity they produce will be large and scaled, and therefore the unit of production will be much lower. And the benefit from that unit of production that is much lower will be smaller than the cost of logistics of transporting from point A to point B. So, and I buy that and I support that. And I think if we trade together, we'll stop fighting each other. So all these small wars that is happening in our continent should go to an end, because people then know that they can become wealthy by trading together, not fighting wars. And the financial services should be able to allocate capital on that basis to their clients. Just remember on Monday, the President, His Excellency, commissioned Dangote Refinery. If that refinery is to be built only for Nigeria, okay, it will not be as scaled as it is. But because it is going to be built for not just Nigeria, but Pan-African, and also actually, honestly said, to the rest of the world, that is why it can scale. That is why it can be profitable. That's, provided all the economics, we don't want to start buying the petrol from Dangote at a cost that doesn't meet its cost of production. Okay, we can talk about that some other time. But that it is important. And also, it is important that in all other places, we're able to then focus on what we know how to do. If Nigeria can deal with petroleum and petrochemicals and coal, if the largest pool of capital is sitting in South Africa, if the largest pool of opportunity to structure is sitting there, if there are things that are sitting in East Africa that they can concentrate on. Remember those old economics of division of labor and concentration, allowing people to do that which they can do more of, and then trading allow them to grow a society. As a bank, I've been, as a banker, or I was a banker, I've been at the forefront of ensuring that we can scale. And scaling requires us to come together. If you don't come together, the market is fragmented. Nobody will cite a meaningful industry in our various countries if we are 55. But people will cite meaningful industry there. And therefore, bankers need to use that as basis of capital allocation. Because if it is serving more than one market, it has a higher chance of being successful in the long run. If you're serving one market, if you have look at airlines, right? Okay, if you have Ethiopian Airlines today, it's, by the way, the only profitable airline in Africa. Others are small, but they are getting there. But remember, the whole of West Africa, all of us are aspiring to have airline in each country. It doesn't work that way. It shouldn't work that way. So the continental free trade area is to remove the friction and allow goods to move. But there are also things that all of us need to do. The big countries need to understand that the small countries are not just markets where you dump things on and their people cannot participate in the production. So if we're going to have successful continental free trade area that works well. It has to work well for the people in large countries. It has to work well for people in the small countries. Because the people in small countries, if it doesn't work well for them, they will vote their government, they will change it. And the large countries have responsibility of supporting it until it become matured. So I would not want any large country to close borders. You can't close border and say you want free trade. Come on, trade doesn't happen in the air.
Awesome, brilliant, brilliant. So you've touched, we're coming close to the end, gradually. And now we'll be touching on Nigeria as a country. You kickstarted that by talking about the investment in Dangote Refinery, for example. And so we want to see, how do you see the nexus between monetary policy and fiscal policy in Nigeria, given that in the next few days, we'll be having a new government being inaugurated, right? So what's your view, given your experience in financial services? How should we, or what should we expect in terms of fiscal and monetary policy going forward?
Okay. So let me, and I'm going to try and be, I'm from this country, I'm from this continent. Therefore, what I'm saying is in the interest of all of us today and tomorrow. The role of government in our life is to solve problems that we cannot solve individually.
Yeah.
I don't need government to solve problems for me that I can solve for myself. I believe in market economy, and I think that's obvious. If you don't, that's a separate conversation for another day. What is the biggest problem that I need a government to solve? It is to deliver price stability. Okay? That is the only thing that as a person, I cannot even do a comparable product to satisfy me in terms of price stability. Remember, the only way I can get stability without government is to externalize my saving into hard currency. Okay? And that's not scalable for a country. So price stability is the most important thing that the government needs to do. If I like power, but if I don't have power, I can buy generator. I like pipe-borne water. If I don't get pipe-borne water, I can dig well or borehole. But I cannot deliver price stability myself. So the incoming government needs to understand that the most important thing for them is to deliver price stability. And everything they need to do to deliver that price stability, they need to do it and communicate it well to people so that people understand the trade-off. When there is no price stability, our inflation today is above 20%, 22%, which means that in 3 years, okay, everything doubles. Which means if you retire at 60, by 70, you are poor, very poor, by the way. Remember, we work for, if you finish school and you settle down, by age 30, you start earning good money. You earn that good money for 30 years. And then you retire at 60, if you're like me. But you pray to live for 90 years. That means that you work for 30 years to spend for 60 years. And if you don't, and the only thing that can deny you the ability to spend for the larger part of your life is inflation, because it robs you of your savings. So people need to understand that inflation, it doesn't carry gun, okay? It doesn't, but it's the biggest robber of the savings of society. The government needs to deal with it. Now, what causes inflation is when government try to do things they don't have money to do. That's part of it. Of course, there is infrastructure, a lot of those things, I get that. But the biggest thing is that our government does not have enough money to do the things we want them to do. And therefore, all of us have to say, what do we want government to do? Which one comes with inflation? Anything we want them to do that comes with inflation, we should ask them to stop doing it. So, we should ask them to stop doing subsidy. It comes with inflation. That inflation robs me without me knowing. That subsidy I can do without. But you cannot have a government that spends money that doesn't deliver inflation, and we think that we are getting better. We can't. We are being robbed without us knowing. And the only way the society, the elite, can hedge themselves against inflation, remember, price stability is to externalize their savings. And if all of us do that, we'll not have a society. So the government that is incoming needs to say price stability. What are those things that leads to price instability? Things like deficit. What is our biggest consumer of deficit today? Is subsidy. And we all have to, we can say, oh, it is the only benefit the poor get and all that. Let's not deceive the poor. 97% of subsidy is consumed by you and I with our big cars. Okay? The people working for me in my house, they enter Molwe and it uses diesel. Diesel is not subsidized. Okay? So that, if we are spending so much on that subsidy and is delivering inflation, why don't we just take it out and then have a better society? So the government needs to articulate. And as well, I agree, the government needs to become honest with what are they going to do with the money if they don't spend it on subsidy. But subsidy today delivers inflation. If you remove it, in my view, it doesn't deliver. That reduces the consequences of inflation.
Brilliant.
The government needs to also make sure that they have a plan, they explain to people. But we all talk government. All of us need to also know that we need to pay taxes. If we don't pay tax and we want the government to do things, they deliver inflation. That is the trade-off. You don't pay tax, you get inflation. You pay tax, inflation goes down. You get subsidy, you get inflation. So we have to have this communication to our people. And I hope that people will also understand that if these things are done properly and we are governed properly, and if you don't like the government, we change it through voting, not have less than 30% participation going forward, right? And that's the responsibility of all of us. Thank you. I know time is gone, so I'm trying to.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that consideration. There are a lot of policy inputs in your responses, and I just hope this will get to the right quarters or the right channel more appropriately. So riding on that, monetary policy, I want to bit focus on West Africa right now. There has been talks around, single currency in West Africa. And this question here is pretty simple, latching on the need to deliver price stability. Are there merits to this? And how can this be realized in the best interest of all the countries involved?
There is merit to having single currency because it reduces the friction of exchange. Remember, as we all talk towards that perfect market, which we never get, one of them is frictionless, right, in the theory. So there is merit to that, which means that if you are in Ghana, you can order something from Cote d'Ivoire without monetary challenge, without price challenge. When I live in Togo, I can buy something from Benin Republic. It's the same currency, so it's not a problem. So I think it's the right thing for us to aspire to. But to aspire to that, we need to also have convergence of the environment. The convergence is, again, price stability. Remember the conversation? Price stability. We need to have that convergence. We cannot be running inflation of 22% in Nigeria, long-run inflation of 13%, and they're running inflation of 2% in Benin Republic, long-run, currently about 6%. And we think that the currency will be stable and will be one currency. It can't. So we have to work towards convergence first. And we have to agree that convergence. see, if you look at EU, they agreed that convergence. When some people were cheating around that convergence, Greece and all of that, that created turbulence, remember? So that convergence is there. And if we cannot, and you remember that once you have single currency, a currency union is just one level below political union. We should all be clear. We are trading sovereignty for certain benefits of that currency. And let's not say that, oh, we want a single currency, but we want our own central bank different. We want a single currency, we want our own monetary policy different. We want a single currency, we don't want harmonization of fiscal policies. No. Monetary union is just one level below political union. And the steps that we need to get there, that we need to climb, we are not getting out of the basement floor. Sorry. I like it, but in the scheme of things that we need to do, it's still way ahead of us. I know it's fashionable for head of state to get together and talk about monetary union. It's fashionable because it's not going to happen during their time. It's always 10 years in the future.
Wow. Very, very, very interesting conversation there that you've given us. I mean, and those are critical points that as policymakers, as individuals who are engaging with policymakers, we need to take these points to them on how to strategize and the pros and the cons for what they're trying to achieve and what needs to be done to get there, because it looked like that has been quite elusive. So we need to be clear on what we want and take examples from other people who have achieved it. And I mean, Brexit just happened, right? I guess we need to also look at that if we're ready to take the benefit as well as take the disadvantages of the one currency. So we would like to take some questions from the audience now, and then so that we just give them also a sense of participation. One of the questions that has come up is someone in the audience, Mr. Olamide, has noted that you've worked with a global bank and you've also worked with a Pan-African bank. What would you say were the challenges and vis-a-vis the reward of working in a global bank as well as working with a Pan-African bank?
Well, working in a global bank, remember, dollar liquidity was not a problem. Working in local bank, dollar liquidity is a problem, right? But I enjoyed both. The problems will exist and you need to solve them. I think I enjoy both.
Okay.
There are some of the questions that I saw about, so why are people in public services not getting this message and executing it? Once you remove the self, okay, from the job, then you are able to get better focus. A lot of us don't remove the self. A lot of us think about what I'm going to get, my neighborhood, my community, my family, before everybody understands this. There's nothing I'm saying that is new that people don't understand. But people just need to remove themselves, their own self-benefits.
Okay, I have one more question from Ibukun. I'm not sure if that's Miss President, but so the question is, did you start your career with a dream that you will one day become CEO? If you did, how did you develop relationships that spoke for you in the rooms where decisions were being made?
No, it will be rude and arrogant to say that I started my career with the intention of becoming CEO. You don't. You start your career with the intention of making a success out of the career, whatever that success is at the time you start. But you need to know that to be successful, you need to work hard, you need to deliver, and you need to be trusted. And if you do those things consistently, and then prepare yourself, be ready, opportunities will come, and when they come, take advantage of it. Somebody say, what's the role of banks in price stability? Banks don't have, the price stability is a consequence of actions of the fiscal authorities to start with. The next person is the monetary authority, which is the central bank. So the banks themselves, they are transmission agents. Our role, the banks, I mean, that's if you look at banks, they're just transmission agents. The first agent is the fiscal authority, the next agent is the monetary authority, and the banks in the system are transmission agents. The monetary authority, the fiscal authority, if they don't run deficits, then the monetary authority cannot ratify that deficit with increased money supply. If our money supply is 22%, our inflation will be 22%. Let's not beat about the bush. Go and look at our M2 monetary supply and look at inflation. They all run at the same level. So the banks, we are just part of the people. The fiscal and the monetary agent are the people that can deal with it. The banks, no, it's not the banks. It's not the bank's mandate to deal with.
Okay, we have one other question from Anekan, and I think he's piggybacking on the point on removal of subsidy. So he's talked about the importance of removal of subsidy, but he's asked, how do we prepare for this subsidy removal, given that the attendant effect will be an increase in PMS, the price of PMS, and which further fuels inflation?
Okay, let me see. So I came from my house in Magodo to come here today so that I can be here to do this event. It took me 2 hours to come from my house to this event. I'm just talking productivity. What am I trading? I'm trading productivity, 2 hours of my time for PMS subsidy, right? So if there is little subsidy, but I can drive from my house here in 20 minutes rather than 2 hours, that is benefit that I have. Today, the rest of the infrastructure is not being developed. Our roads are jam-packed. Our rails as a means of transporting agricultural goods are not there. Because of inflation, nobody is investing in transportation for us. Remember, the government can build a rail, but the rolling stock has to be done by private sector today. If that is not done, okay, that creates a problem. So to me, it is a question of allocation. How much do we have? What do you want to do with it? There's somebody that said that, subsidy is not the only cause of inflation. Yeah, I agree. But it's a major cause. Because look at what the government is spending on and infrastructural bottlenecks. If there are infrastructural bottlenecks, because we don't have money to do it, then to me is the main cause. Inculcate value system in people is tell them they can be profitable, they can be rich without stealing. If we develop our stock market, okay, Razak, you are in the stock market. If I buy index, if I invest in index fund in Nigeria, it's flat. Okay, like the habit of a dead man. In other countries, it's growing. So we need to demonstrate that people can be wealthy without stealing by developing a good capital market, a good market economy.
Okay. So we'll be rounding up gradually. We just have a couple of questions now to round up. There are a lot more questions, but unfortunately, we might not be able to take all the questions. Otherwise, we'll spend the whole day here. So one final question on the economy, Nigeria, Africa, before we move into a bit more personal and outro is, in your view, given your experience working as a Pan-African right now, which country in Africa will you say is on the right path of delivering good economic outcomes for its people?
Okay, every country is on a path. Okay, and I think some of them are doing better than the other. But let me give you an example of Botswana. Botswana is on the same geological plate as Zimbabwe, right? They're both landlocked, they're neighbored, they're members, they're colonized, they're all of that. But look at Botswana economic outcome and look at Zimbabwe economic outcome. And the people of Zimbabwe are hardworking, they're great people, they are learned, they're all that. But look at the outcome. So all of us we know what needs to be done. If you look at Kenya today, they're removing subsidy. So I think they're on the right path. Because they remove subsidy, they've been supported by the financial community in saying, okay, we will support you. Other than those two, every other person is making a lot of effort. If you look at Cote d'Ivoire, go to Cote d'Ivoire, see what they've done. And 10 years ago, they were in the middle of war. 10, 12 years ago, they were in the middle of war. And see what they've done.
Okay.
Somebody said I live in Magodo. That's what I can afford.
Okay, there is one quick question here. I think this is riding on one of your responses earlier on to the challenges you faced while you took on the CEO role at ETM. That how did you build coalition with the new team and the challenging colleagues when you took on the role?
It is to be able to preach to what is higher than us. Remember, this is an exercise that came together for people from Francophone West Africa, Anglophone West Africa, to create an entity that can deliver a future of West Africa that we all believe in. And all of us are all part of that journey, and we all drop at some point. The question is, when we drop, have we moved that idea forward or not? And we had that conversation among ourselves. We know what we need to do. It's not, and that's why I said nobody reigns in an organization. If you go down, you think you are reigning, no, then you've got it wrong. And I'm very grateful to God, I'm grateful to my colleagues for believing in what the institution stands for and strive for. And we all work hard to make sure that when we leave, which is we've left, when we leave, then the people that are coming after us, we owe them that will make their burden lighter, okay? And every other person, we get closer to that ideal. And if we haven't done it, then we've wasted a period on the seat. And a lot of my colleagues agree, and we got it done.
Well, thank you very much, sir, for those responses. I think when you answered the question about the capital market, I wanted to say, our capital market took stray bullets here without when you said the index was flat like the heartbeat of a dead man. Okay, but thank you for the analogies that you've given and your responses so far. We're gradually rounding up. We're going to start going into more softer questions as we go. But just this last question from the audience, and then we will then go back to soft questions so that we can all land on the soft. Let's not be too heated up with all the economic things that we're talking about. So Dr. Ekes is asking, what advice would you give to improve domestic productivity, especially from the agricultural side, and less consumption of imported goods, which is one of the major challenges of Nigeria?
Okay, I think to improve our productivity as people, we need to be able to make the environment to be conducive to producing. I would like to go, agriculture is good, but we need to have security, okay, for us to be able to produce in those agriculture. We need to allow the market forces to determine prices Otherwise, people will not be able to get the production done. And if we need to have some level of import until the things can be developed, we need to ensure that there is pre-allocation of scarce FX resources to the places where it needs to go. And 1776, a Scotsman discovered that the price is the best allocator of scarce resources. If the price is right, the resources will be best allocated.
Awesome.
Thank you. You
Awesome.
touched on an important one, the FX allocation, but we will just allow that.
Let price allocate, not discretion allocate.
I agree with you. I mean, it was a topic on Twitter yesterday when some things happened. But let's go to let's leave that hanging there, and we'll go to more to from a family perspective. Like I said, we're going to be closing with more soft topics and soft questions. And we know the Gen Zs these days are all preaching work-life balance, as important for them to have work-life balance because they want to be present at home as well as able to deliver on their jobs. So would you like to tell us about your family and how did you cope with such a demanding job as a CEO of a Pan-African bank and vis-a-vis having that balance at the home front as well?
Okay, so thank you. I think it's important for one to know that the family is important, because otherwise, there's all of this is for fun, right? The family is important. When I left Nigeria, my wife, who is better qualified than me, get better degree than me, step off work so that she can look after her family, and we're all together outside Nigeria. So we have to know that it takes more than one person to do the job that I was able to do. But I also make sure that my kids, at critical moments, I'm there. At critical moments, I'm there. I mean, it doesn't, when they were not offering geometry in my kids' school, okay, I bought the geometry book and we went through it together. Okay, if my kids wants to do assignment and they need me to participate, I make sure I'm present, because they are not going to go through that period of their life twice. And if I deny them the opportunity to go through the right period of life, then that is a problem. So as a person, I know how to create time for my family, but the person that created the most, that made the most sacrifice, was my wife. That say, okay, fine, you are going to do the job, I'm going to look after the family, but I make sure that at some critical moments in the lives of my kids that I'm present.
Wow, thumbs up to Mrs. Ade Ayeyemi. I mean, that's very courageous. Well done, and I'm clapping for you here. I mean, that's a role model to look up to. So Razak, I'll let you take the last questions as we round off the session. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So officially, you retired from ETI, but again, we are not sure if you are truly retired. So here is the question that that speaks to that, really. What should we expect from you? Or you just want to be on the countryside, enjoying breeze and being on the beach? Or do you have some other things we should look forward to in terms of the next surprise for us, either in Nigeria or Africa or the world? What should we be looking forward to from you?
Okay, what I like to do, again, you pray to God for long life, good health, is to be able to give back. And the best place I know I can give back is education. So I would like to see what I can do, to the extent I have some knowledge, no matter how limited it is, to participate in giving back to society through education. I like to teach, I like to research, and I like to be part of the people that tell our story. I haven't been part of the story, because I read so many people tell the story of Africa by watching CNN. I have been part of the story, and I want to be able to be part of the people writing that story. I haven't lived the story. So you're not going to see me setting up new banks because that's not it's not that necessary. There are enough banks to solve our problem, but we need to be able to give back, to train people, to teach. I may formalize my giving back in form of a PhD program. I may formalize it in terms of going to teach in a university to the extent that I can get a university to take me to teach.
Yeah, I'm
And
sure.
if I can't get here, of course, I'll go
Yeah,
outside.
it should be here. Let's let's domicile that knowledge here. I'm sure there will be a lot of Nigerian universities that will be more than willing to have you as a visiting lecturer. I'm 100% certain of that. So yeah, so we have so many other questions, but unfortunately, we won't be able to take those questions. We've tried as much as possible to take that we can take, but unfortunately, time is not on our side. In fact, right now, we overspent on the allocated time we had already. So thank you so much. As you said, we should call you Ade Ayeyemi, even though it's a bit heavy from me, but I've mustered the courage to do that. Thank you so much for spending the last 1.5 hours with us. And for everybody that has joined as well, we appreciate your time. Thank you, Elizabeth, for being a fantastic co-moderator, and for the CFA Society Nigeria for putting this together. So back to you, the Society Office, to do what you're best at doing.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Wow. Allow me get religious this morning. Like we'll say in church, I have been personally blessed. And I believe I can say so for every other person on this call this afternoon. Thank you all for joining in this leadership series. We'd like to especially thank our guest speaker, Ade, for honoring our invitation and sharing generously. I'm sure you agree with me this afternoon that indeed he shared from his heart. And that for me is one of the things that has really blessed me in this session this afternoon. We've had a double dose of leadership nuggets this afternoon. He's spoken about leadership traits. He's also spoken about business opportunities. And I believe a lot of the bankers on the call this afternoon have a lot to take back to their team for discussion. He's also touched on themes around financial planning. Just listening to him speak, it was easy to marry his profile with the person I heard talk this afternoon. He talked about risk management. He talked about innovation. He's been a blessing this afternoon. But more importantly is the passion for the industry that he has. And I dare say he retired too early. I believe there's opportunity for him to come back into the industry in a consulting opportunity. So this session has not just been for aspiring leaders, it has also been for present leaders. As a supervisor of people, we're reminded today that you are holding that position in trust and you are not there to reign. For aspiring leaders as well, we're challenged to embrace taking opportunities. He spoke about how he left Citi for ETI in the midst of uncertainty, but he went ahead to make that move. We need to have the big picture. In talking about the big picture, he spoke about how he left to take a job in Kenya, and his colleagues in Kenya looked at him and said, "You've come for a lower position," but he had a big dream. There will be opportunities, there will be decisions we'll have to make in the course of our career that may lead to relocation to undesired places or even a pay cut. But ultimately, those opportunities prepare us for the big picture, and we should not be shy away from it. Elizabeth, I have to agree with you on him deserving an honorary award of a CFA. In terms of integrity, he also went on to talk about the end goal in finance is to serve and to create a society, which is one of the key tenets of the CFA society as well. Again, that dovetails into a strategy around financial inclusion, and he did reference theme around communication. And immediately he said that the first thing that came to my mind was, as CFA holders or as learned colleagues in the industry, we have to be mindful when we talk to less financially savvy people in terms of using phrases like ROI, etc. Ability to communicate with the key mind is key to ensure that we expand this brackable population of people who we can then engage with. Leadership is an ongoing journey and it requires dedication, perseverance. Remember, great leaders are not born, but it is the conscious willingness to shape our minds, experiences as we go along this journey that is important. And as we provide ourselves this leadership series opportunities, we need to remind ourselves at the end of every session that there's a lot for us to be deliberate about, a lot to think about, mull over, but more importantly, ensure that we practice these things that we hear in ensuring that we become better leaders of tomorrow. In conclusion, we'd like to thank Ade once again for taking out time to come and honor an invitation, but more importantly, like I said earlier, share generously from his heart. We'd like to thank our participants as well, our moderators, and the Society Office for putting together this opportunity for us to meet and learn once again. Thank you all, and do enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you've made a decision to aim for a long-term and successful finance career, taking the Chartered Financial Analyst CFA exam and studying the curriculum is an excellent way to ensure you have a strong knowledge base and top-notch skills. Are you ready to take the bold step to invest in yourself? CFA Society Nigeria is at your disposal, promoting the highest standards of investment practice in Nigeria. As an affiliate of CFA Institute, CFA Society Nigeria seeks to promote the highest standards of investment practice in Nigeria and to provide a vibrant community in which its members and other key players in the investment industry can interact and grow. When you have the CFA Charter, you're globally recognized. Take advantage today by writing the CFA exam and joining us at CFA Society Nigeria. For more information, visit us at cfasocietynG.org. CFA Society Nigeria, making finance a force for good.